final, we go now over in the African Cup of Nations with two nations, superior nations of African football, duke it out to see who will become kings of Africa once again. Will it be Nigeria? Will it be Ivory Coast? We're going to take a little look at it. That's right, folks, back once again with another prediction video. Today we're taking a look at, of course, the final. Of course, it all boils down to this. Who will come out on top as the kings, the supreme of Africa? Will it be, of course, Nigeria, or will it be the hosts, Ivory Coast? We'll get into it, all of it, in a second, of course. Big shout out to my VIPs. They are the patrons. You know who you are. And again, if you knew, where the hell have you been, guys? Your one-stop shop for the AFCON continues right here at Blackburn Overseas, of course. So we've been here from the get-go all the way through to this day. Of course, it is the final, and, of course, we're going to take a quick look at that in a second. Of course, big shout out to the VIPs again. Patrons again, make sure you subscribe. Of course, your one-stop shop continues. Here it is. All right, then, folks, here we are at, of course, the semi-final stage. It was Nigeria against Bafana, South Africa. I actually went with a 2-0 win for Nigeria, but they actually came out on top via penalties after 1-1 scoreline. On the other side of the bracket, it was the hosts, Ivory Coast, of course, against DR Congo. Another surprise package to be at this stage. But I went with a 3-2 win for Ivory Coast, but they squeaked through with just a 1-0 win to set up this final, of course, which we'll take a little look at in just a second, of course. But before that, let's recap how we got to this stage with these two nations at the final. All right, then, folks, quick recap of the group stages, of course, and over in Group A, we saw Equatorial Guinea coming out on top with an impressive 7 points, actually ousting current finalists Nigeria into second spot. Ivory Coast, again, will join them in that final, of course, so we're going to have a repeat of that match, which Nigeria won. I want to elaborate on that in a little bit, of course. So these two sides will lock horns. It's the battle of the Group A. I've just realised that. It's the battle of Group A, of course. Into Group B, we saw Cape Verde coming out on top with Egypt joining them, and, of course, losing my original tip, Ghana, at this early stage. Mozambique, of course, were impressive, but unfortunately couldn't get over the line. Senegal, the current champions, a perfect record for them. They looked set to, of course, go deep in this competition, but were ousted at the knockout stages. We'll, again, go into that in a bit. At Cameroon also getting through as well as up. Guinea, of course, joining them as well. Into Group D, Angola impressed us over in there, of course, beating Burkina Faso to the top spot. Algeria, one of the tips, ousting at the early stage once again as a disappointing AFCON continues. Group E saw Mali top the charts with South Africa, Bafana in second spot, ahead of Namibia, who did squeak through as well. But Tunisia, again, just like Algeria, disappointing. And Ghana, three major nations crashing out at this initial stage. And then Morocco, of course, everybody's tip for the title, top the charts in Group F. They looked just like Senegal to go deep in this competition. DR Congo joined them. Zambia, ousted at this stage alongside Tanzania. So those were the initial group stages, of course, and then, of course, we were presented with the crazy madness that was the knockout stages. So let's recap those knockout stages, of course, and, of course, it started with Nigeria against Cameroon, a bit of a zing-zong affair on that one, of course. Nigeria coming through. Angola against Namibia, of course, Angola doing the honours as well. Cape Verde, Mauritiana, saw Cape Verde go through, and, of course, Morocco against South Africa, of course, a major surprise there with Morocco crashing out. On the other side of the bracket, of course, it was Burkina Faso coming through their match, of course, against Mali, of course, Senegal against Ivory Coast, again, a difficult match as well. Saw Ivory Coast, the hosts, oust the champions. Egypt against DR Congo saw, of course, one of the juggernauts, Egypt, pack their bags with DR Congo going through. In the battle of the Guineas, saw Equatorial Guinea and Guinea lock horns, with Guinea coming out on top to go through to the quarter-finals. In that one, we did see Nigeria up against Angola, with the Super Eagles going through to the semi-finals. They were joined by a South African side who just continued to defy the odds against the DR Congo, against the Cape Verde side, who were very, very impressive throughout this competition, and of course were a little bit unfortunate not to be in those semi-finals. So Nigeria, South Africa through. They were joined by Ivory Coast, who took care of Mali, and DR Congo took care of Guinea to go through to the semi-finals. And that is where we left you. Of course, we did leave you with the Nigeria, South Africa semi-final, Ivory Coast, DR Congo, but we're now at a point to, of course, reveal that final, which will be Nigeria up against Ivory Coast. And, of course, let's go and jump into that one right here, right now. But let's get into the deep end now. These two sides will be locking horns on the 11th of February at the Stade Olympique Alassane Ouattara. They played each other 5 times since 2006. We've got 2 wins for Nigeria, 3 for Ivory Coast, and 0 draws. Eagles, of course, they did, of course, their biggest win for Nigeria was just a 1-0 win, scoring 3 goals in those 5 games, 0.60 goals a game. Ivory Coast, their biggest win, also just a 1-0 win, scoring 4 goals in those 5 games, 0.80 goals a game. Ivory Coast on 67% form for them at the moment, of course, winning 3 on the spin for them. However, a couple of defeats in the background. Of course, Nigeria, 92% form for them, and winning 5 in the bounce as well. Now, these two sides did lock horns at the start of the tournament, way back, match day number 2 it was a 1-0 win for Nigeria. Prior to that, it was a 1-0 win for the Ivory Coast back in January 2015. It was a long, long time since these two sides locked horns, of course. The journey so far for Nigeria consisted of a draw against Equatorial Guinea, that win over Ivory Coast, another win against Guinea-Bissau. Of course, Nigeria then picked up a 2-0 win over Cameroon in the knockouts, Angola, and then South Africa in the knockout stages. Ivory Coast, on the flip side, their journey started opening day with a 2-0 win over Guinea-Bissau. They followed that up with a 1-0 loss to Ivory Coast and a bit of a spanking, bit of a lesson against Equatorial Guinea. They then squeaked by Senegal 5-4 on penalties, and then extra time needed to get past Mali, and then just the 1 goal needed to get past the DR Congo to put themselves in a final, of course, which of course was not expected after that group stage calamity. They've also lost their coach in the process, but the goals, let's talk about the goals. Goals coming from Lukman has been the top goal scorer for Nigeria, chipping in with 3 so far. As for Ivory Coast, a lot of players with 1 goal. Some of the standouts being Hala, who of course scored that important goal last time around. Quick look at the bookies odds for this one then. We do have Nigeria 70-10 to win this one. 15-8 is your Ivory Coast. Also 15-8 is of course the draw. Meanwhile, there will be a 3rd place player between South Africa and DR Congo. And if I was to pick, I probably would go South Africa to win that one. But that's not what we're talking about. We are talking about the final, and that's of course this one. Of course, I think Ivory Coast have been lucky to get to this point. I've not seen anything that's going to stand out significantly. I think they're just kind of running across the way. They will have the advantage of the fans behind them, of course, the competition taking place in Ivory Coast. But I just think the Super Eagles have enough quality in the tank, and of course the camaraderie to get that elusive victory. So I'm going to go with a 1-0 win for the Super Eagles to take it to the house and become champions once again of Africa. Let me know your thoughts and opinions as we look ahead to this final, and of course our focus will then switch to the World Cup in 2026, where hopefully both these nations and of course some of the other representatives of the knockouts and of course Africa will be at that grand old stage in America, Canada and Mexico for the World Cup. We look forward to that. Of course, hopefully you'll join us here at the channel. Of course, it doesn't stop here, guys. Football keeps on going, and of course we keep on delivering right here at Blackman OC. So keep on subscribing, subscribe, smash the old likey. But of course, for me, the Super Eagles are going to glory.